Dylan Butler with us. So what is the mug, by the way, Dylan?
Goldfish.
Yes. Since episode 7 of season 3 is out, and we have been basically sworn by everyone not to give spoilers under any
No spoilers. No spoilers.
or any auspice of the situation. So how was the high schooling and getting prepared for multiple championships all at the same time, sir?
No, just games. Didn't have any championships, but yeah, multiple, a lot of games.
Okay.
I had two on Saturday. In between the two games on Saturday, I did some prep for my game on Monday. So MLS shift. Yeah, busy times.
All right. So now that you've gotten everything so what matches did you get to cover this past weekend when we were staring at Major League Soccer?
I was on Sunday, so I had the Atlanta Chicago, and then it's just sort of like a potpourri on Saturday. Mostly like 8:30 and later matches.
Okay. So since you volunteered it, what did you think about the Atlanta match and its inherent craziness, as Jarrett Smith adds to the conversation? The inherent craziness once again of Atlanta United. What'd you think?
It was funny because I was like, all right, 1-0, it is what it is. And then, yeah, and then it kind of went off the rails late, didn't it? It was a pretty crazy one for sure. But I mean, look, it's not every game isn't going to be super aesthetically pleasing. It's not going to be the beautiful game all the time. But it's 3 points, right? And like, maybe this is a game a year ago that's a tie, or somehow ends up being a loss, or something happens in stoppage time against Atlanta. So, again, from a neutral, I have no support and either side. I think it was the right result. And again, I think you just kind of take it for what it was. An ugly win is still a win.
There you go. Jarrett Smith for Dylan Butler. Good morning, Jarrett.
Good morning. Everything is chaos. Act accordingly. Good Lord. Getting out from Atlanta for a second. It looks like, and we talked about teams last time you joined us before your schedule just went completely off the rails.
Yeah.
We had talked about some of the coaches that were struggling early in the season, and I know they scored, I think, 3 goals last night, but Sporting Kansas City, I mean, if anybody in the country needed a result like last night in the Open Cup, it might have been them. Are they capable, you think, of actually getting this thing, not even turned around, but just stabilized?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know the right answer. I mean, look, you get, think about it last night. You get goals from Gadi Kinda and you get a goal from Alan Polito, right? I mean, like, I think we need Opta to figure out the last time those two guys scored in a match together, right? Because we know it was 2 years ago for Polito. So that was probably the last time those two guys scored, both battling injuries. And we've said it before, like, Sporting's been one of those teams, especially to key guys, that have really been hampered by injuries. Portland's another, but that being said, still, they didn't do a good job, a good enough job, or a good job at all, really, of realizing that they were getting old and then kind of fixing that, right? Like, so I think they realized it too late, and then the fixes haven't been good since. So, can they rectify this? Remains to be seen. I mean, like, MLS is a crazy forgiving league, right? If you can win 3 matches in a row, say, suddenly you're back in the mix, right? So I don't think the odds are in their favor, though, especially when you consider some of the other teams in the West and what they're doing and their level of consistency as well. I think you've got 2 of the most consistent teams in Seattle and LAFC, and now St. Louis doing what they're doing. So I think, who's dropping points to also allow you to move up the table is as big a question as, can you get the points too?
So, there've been a lot of coaches that we have either put on the hot seat or, put them on the stove and not quite turn the stove on yet. There are coaches that I guess are being added. Inter Miami is, debating, do we add Neville to this mix? Do we add Latanzio and Charlotte? Where are we right now with coaches that are hot seated, who got reprieves, who got the phone call from the warden? What are we looking at here from your point of view?
Or the dreaded vote of confidence, right? Those are always the worst.
Yeah.
Oh, God, yes.
That's when you know that guy's right out the door next.
Vote of confidence. Yes, we believe in what he's doing. I give him the vote of confidence.
Right. Then the next day the email comes. They parted ways.
Yes.
Let's see. Yeah, I mean, look, it's fair to say with Neville, right? Because of the ambition there, because of where they thought they'd be at this point. I don't know if it's. Do you say that the Joseph experiment is at a failure? It's certainly not working.
Right.
So, I don't know if it's too early to give a final grade on that, but yeah, I mean, think about this too. If they lose in a Miami derby tonight, right? Like it's pretty hot in South Beach. It'll get a little bit hotter, I think, for Neville. So I think he's right there. Vermees is an interesting case because, again, we've said it numerous times, right? But he's his boss too.
Yeah.
So like who's handling that? Like the ownership. I don't know if there's enough pressure there on him for his job. Vanny, I think he was another one too who maybe was in that mix. One guy that I don't know. I don't know if it's too early to put him there, but his body of work isn't very good. It's Losada, right? Like now, again, he understandably the best players that Montreal had a year ago are not there.
Yeah.
That being said, he didn't get the job done in DC, and they ended up getting a win over the Red Bulls, but outside of that, he's not looked good there. And then I don't know, do you put Struber there?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a possibility. I know certainly there's a little bit of a PR nightmare, I think, and a lot of the fans are upset just about the whole situation and how he handled it. And then on top of the results aren't there. So I probably put that grouping of I don't know, is it lukewarm to hot seats right now?
I mean, yeah, that's what we're staring at.
And I guess to not bring you on just to be the hangman or the executioner.
Oh, come on!
Let's go the other.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, let's go the other direction with it. We're about a quarter of the way through the season now. We're getting to that point where small sample sizes are becoming significant enough where you can start making judgments. Who's been your biggest pleasant surprise of the season?
Well, you know what I like to. I think Wilfred Nancy. We know, sometimes you're not sure about how good a coach is until you see them with another team and another setup, another set of players. And I think the proof is that he's a good coach, right? And you could see why Columbus made as big a bid for him as they could and really pushed to get him. So I don't know if I'd call it a surprise, but I think it's validation, right? It's good validation to see what he's done from Montreal now to Columbus. I don't know if there's any other surprises.
Well, but how much of a surprise was Carnell in St. Louis to you?
I think he's a good coach. I think in that system, he fits that system, right? Like he knows, if you've got a specialty as a chef, right? And if you're, I don't know, if you're great at making pasta bolognese,
yeah.
and that's your thing, right? So exactly the ingredients, it perfectly. And I think he perfectly fits this system, and I think he did a really good job at Red Bull. And it's funny now because probably Red Bull fans are like, "Hey, can we? I wish we had him back right now." Uh, but I think he was also set up really well for success, right? And all the reasons that we've said before, where they, they got him in early. They got the players in early, right? They got, and I think that's something that I think is super important, right? Like these are guys who are coming from Europe, and you see it in Atlanta, you see it everywhere, right? There's an acclimation process, and there's no, you know, it's not an exact science, right? Some guys it takes them pretty quickly to get acclimated to a new environment, new culture, and everything. Other guys sometimes never do. So to get the group together, to get a bond going, even before preseason, I think was super important too. So they knew the way they were going to play. They got to know each other, and I think Carnell in that system fits it perfectly. So I wouldn't say that I'm surprised. I mean, look, yeah, everyone's surprised by the level of success that St. Louis is having, but I'm not surprised that he's succeeding in that system.
So for the conversation that I know I've seen a lot in the last few weeks with what's gone on in Red Bulls and Carnell doing that in St. Louis, I mean, is it unfair to play full revisionist history and look hindsight that New York didn't give him the job? Was it just at the moment? I know you're getting Struver, who had a bigger CV when he came in. I mean, is it just kind of an unfair revisionist history, or do you think it's a fair criticism that they didn't give him the gig at the time?
Good question. I know what Red Bull fans will say, but
yeah, I mean, it's easy to say now. Is why I asked.
Sure, no, 100%. And who's to say with the personnel that they had? Yes, he's a system guy, but maybe the pieces weren't as good or fitting as well. I mean, who knows, right? Like if he could have easily been in a similar boat. I'm not, who's to say that he's going to take this current group of Red Bull players to the level of success that he's got in St. Louis. So I don't think it's apples for apples, certainly, but yeah, I mean, maybe they should have given him another shot, right? We've heard Jesse March talk about him and laud him on MLS 360. I think 2 match days ago, for all the reasons. He was that Red Bull way. He was that Red Bull guy, the Red Bull system. So yeah, maybe punted on him a little bit early is a fair criticism.
All right. So, what do you think about the new sporting director for U.S. Soccer? Since we've kind of gone down this road a little bit, Crocker is now in, and he gets to determine who the new head coach is going to be for the men's national team.
Yeah, and it sounds like too. Based on a little bit of what he was saying, I don't think it's going to be his decision solely, right? But he's ultimately the guy in charge. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't feel strongly either way. I do like. He's a guy who's built things right with Southampton and the youth set up there, and it's a very young on the men's side at least. And again, he's obviously in charge of not just the U.S. men's national team, but that is the biggest job right now that's out there to be had, the head coach. So yeah, I think I don't hate it. I'm not like I didn't know enough about him before his hire to say he's the absolute guy for it. I do like a few things that he was saying though about like saying that guy doesn't have to live in Chicago, right? Like I thought that was always so silly. I mean, in this day and age, I mean, look, we have this conversation, this spot every week, right? I'm not in Atlanta, you're not in New York, right? We can get it done.
Yes.
I think it's a little bit silly to make it so corporate and like we have to be in a conference room in Chicago and you've got to live in Chicago. Like, he did say obviously that that person would have to be there, but a significant amount of time, but it wouldn't have to live there. So I think that's a positive to hear from that. But also, I mean, it sounds like he's hitting the ground running. He's starting to maybe talk to candidates or work out a list. But it also doesn't sound like it's going to be anytime soon, right? Like he doesn't begin full time until August.
Yeah,
I think so. It would seem like Anthony Hudson has a little bit more of an opportunity here, maybe to impress as the interim in a couple competitions.
Yeah, that's a good point, too. That he continues to just kind of get these
Yeah.
games and just kind of building his resume. I guess not even even if it's not for U.S. Soccer. I've wondered if if this is going to be something where he's going to try and parlay this, maybe something to MLS, maybe something Europe in another division, kind of thing of just
another national team. Who knows, right? For sure.
Maybe a smaller national team gig or maybe an equal national team gig. Just take the opportunity that you get at the moment. Yeah.
So
go ahead.
I was gonna say. So you're in charge.
I am.
You're in charge. You and Crocker are in a room. You and Crocker.
Are we both in Chicago?
Yes. Yes.
We had to relocate you.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes. You've got to be relocated. So the black helicopters have already come out. And there's a thought that Crocker interviewing Marsh for the Southampton gig was a dry run.
I like it.
For interviewing him for the men's national team gig. You know what you're getting with Jesse Marsh. You've already interviewed him. You know, it's like, okay, I know what he's bringing philosophically, stylistically, whatever. How much credence do you think that there is in that notion of the black helicopters where Crocker and Marsh already have that relationship, and that Jesse Marsh, where Crocker is concerned, is already at the head of the line?
And that was a relatively recent interview, right?
Yeah.
So obviously then we are led to believe, I mean, Crocker didn't just interview 3 days ago for this job and killed it, right? So he's been in this mix. So maybe maybe at least part of that conversation, right, was listen, I'm interviewing for this. Take your temperature here. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
I've said, listen, I've said it. I've been pretty consistent saying it. I think he should be the guy. So I said it when we talked. I think it was early in qualifications, right? There were some issues, and there was, U.S. Soccer Twitter, which is so even keeled.
Yes, it is absolutely correct. Yes,
was calling for Berhalter's head, and I thought Marsh would have been the guy. And even at the time too, I was like, but then again, he's always wanted to coach in Europe. He maybe wants to see this Leeds thing through. Obviously now he's out there. He's available.
And that's, yeah. And if it goes down that road, I mean, I know we had the reports, like a couple of months ago. I'm sorry, I've lost track of time because U.S. Soccer exists in its own universe with its own time-space continuum.
Yes.
But there were the rumors about Jim Curtin being a part of that staff.
Yeah, he's even said that too, right? That he would be. I forgot the words he used exactly, but like he'd be interested or keen or flattered to do that as well. And think about it too. You can. I don't know if you continue with this thought process, right? Like, you don't even have to bring Curtin in right away. Like maybe give him this season, right? Maybe see out this Philly thing and see what they can do this year, and then bring him on after.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as other coaches in U.S. Soccer, are we, and not for this cycle necessarily, but maybe for, the 2030 cycle, if he keeps doing things in LA, do we need to start having Steve Cherundolo conversations?
Yeah, why not? I mean, he's a, I think he's even, Curtin, Cherundolo, Bruce Arena. No, I'm just kidding.
Marsh. Yeah. I mean, Curtin, Cherundolo, Marsh, I think is 1, 2, and 3.
Yes. Yeah. That's your trifecta right now.
Just hire them all. Just have them all on the same staff, and the rest of Major League Soccer can sit there and go, we don't have to worry about Philly or LAFC or anything like that.
By the way, completely unrelated. I was so fortunate to be on. I love I love being on these post-game press conferences with Bruce Arena when he's got something to be upset about. And every time I think about his quote about VAR, when he called it phony baloney, it was one of my favorite quotes of the year. I laugh out loud every time I hear it. I loved writing that. I loved putting that in the headline. It was just pure brilliant. And it's funny, right? Because like I feel like Bruce Arena arguing and complaining about officiating. And by the way, he got the referee, the fourth official, VAR. I think the only ones he left out were like the two ARs. Like they were safe from his post-match criticism. Like he almost got every single official that was involved in that match. And then he gives you the phony baloney, which is such a great kind of old man quote, right? Like,
it's the most Bruce Arena thing he could have said.
Oh, it's great. But then it's funny, right? Then you hear other coaches complain, and you're like, they're just whining. Like everybody but Bruce. Like Bruce, you accept it, right? And you love it, and you kind of embrace it. And then everyone else is like, come on, man, stop whining.
Well, I mean, is that a thing where we just let the older folks and the legends sit there and let them have it because that's just Bruce, that's just him.
But even Vermees was complaining the other day, like he's best. Vermees is great on the sideline, right? Like you get the faces from him.
Oh yeah,
but then post match, he just seems like he's whining. Josh Wolf sounds like he's whining, like. But Bruce, you're like, give me more of that. That's fantastic.
Oh man!
And speaking of Austin, what the hell?
Yes.
What is it? Where is the switch to flip from broken to fixed for an Austin team that was in a Western Conference final last year?
We need to unplug it and plug it back in.
Yeah, man, we need to cycle power on this thing.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And they're just not scoring goals. Have they been too Driussi centered, right? Like, yeah. And I've always thought too, like they did a great job getting him. A few other pieces I thought were really good, but like they're still very much an incomplete team. Like other signings, like they've not. The number 9 position has been not very good, right? Like, and to say that Zardes was an upgrade of what you had doesn't necessarily say a lot. So, they're not, teams are figuring out how to play your best guy and your other guys aren't up to that level. And it's obviously an issue. It's been an ongoing issue, but I think it's coming to light even more now.
Yeah, I mean, and when you have these clubs like an Austin, like a Nashville, where you have that one focal point. With Austin, it's Driussi, and then the supporting cast. They're trying to figure out who it was. It's not Max Cerruti this year, that's for certain. And in Nashville, it's been Hani Mukhtar, and you're trying to find a number 2, and they haven't been able to find a number 2, and it's these teams.
It's also not CJ Sapong anymore.
That is, and that is true. And Atlanta fans were incredibly grateful because since he was traded to Toronto, they've already played Toronto this year, and they don't get him with Nashville either. And so you trade for a defender who had.
He's on that Kai Kamara track, isn't he? CJ
yeah.
Sapong.
Yes.
He's going to play for everyone and score
against
all the
everyone. Different teams, yeah.
And you end up with this thing where, you trade for a defender who I think almost had 2 own goals in back-to-back weeks, and Lucas McNaughton, trying to get help at the back. And we made the point that if anybody can try and fix a defender, Gary Smith might be the guy to do it. But these single focus teams trying to find that second guy are the ones that are better than average, but they're having problems, and you don't see a whole lot of a shelf life for them past that opening round of the playoffs. Austin, yeah, okay, they're good. Nashville, yeah, okay, they're good. But these teams need to find support for these stars that basically, if you sit there and you pin and double team these guys, it's going to be difficult for them to get out of whatever round they're in. You see these single star teams, and you see the problems that are attached.
And then look at the other side of it, the better team in the league, right? Like LAFC.
Mm-hmm.
How many different weapons do they have in attack?
Very imaginative salary cap. John Thorrington is turning into a salary cap wizard.
Even here with NYCFC, right? There was a big question, like, who's the number 9? What's going to happen? And suddenly Santi Rodriguez plays a false 9, and maybe he's the answer, right? You move Talis Magno out of that position, and there's also multiple guys that can score goals there. And even for as bad as the Galaxy are, it's not like they're just reliant on Chicharito, right? Like, they've got Jovic, they've got Puig. So, like, there's multiple guys there too. But you can't, obviously, in this league, you can't rely on that one guy. Not to have any sustained success, that's for sure.
Well, I don't know why. Just go get yourself a Yorgos. Solving our problems. Keeps blowing his hamstring out in the 60th minute, but it's solving the problems for 59.5 minutes.
Yes, that is absolutely true. We got you for another couple of minutes. What's your thoughts on Open Cup in general?
I love it. Like, I love it. I'm a romantic about cup competitions. Like, I love those early matches in England where it's like, the small grounds. You see the guy with the, holding his dog outside the fence, and it holds like 400 people, but there's a pub there, and the goalie is also the cab driver. Like, I love those kind of stories. I think it's the magic kind of the Open Cup here at the Open Cup, or cup competitions in general. So I love it. I like that there's still, you've got to attach something more than winning the cup on it, and they do with the Champions League spot. So I think as long as that's attached, I think there's that incentive for MLS teams. I'm a fan of it. I hope it continues. I wished it was more like this whole thing last night with like multiple streams and different levels of streams. Like the Charlotte one, I was like,
yeah,
I swear it was somebody with a cell phone just like putting on an Instagram Live or something. It was
in 2006. Yes.
Yeah, it was not.
Yeah,
it was not what I would call good. I
I
wish there was more of just one central location for all of that. Again, I think there was before, but I don't know why this year that's not the case. So it's on Golasso, it's on BR Football YouTube, it's on team sites. Like, it's hard to find. Like, you don't. It's a hard enough like, it's a tough sell for the regular fan on a weeknight when you know it's your reserves. And it's another then to say, oh yeah, by the way, we don't know where this game's going to be on tonight. And I think there's some that aren't even going to be broadcast tonight. So that's not good. But I thought it was fun last night. Like, I was on last night as well. I picked the 2 cup sets I picked did not pan out. I picked Minnesota for a cup set, and I picked Sporting, which, I mean, that's an easy one, right? I guess, but it took until past midnight for us to get that cup set, and it was San Jose, and it was Frankie Yallop to do it. How cool was
that? Hey, to be fair, the Minnesota one looked good for about 50 minutes.
Yeah, it really did. It did. And that was, how cool was that scene too, right? Like the train coming by, like, by the way, I used to, as a quick aside, there's this incredible soccer field in Queens. It's called the Met Oval. It's a historic, look it up. It's sunken down.
Ooh.
And on the one side, it has this incredible view of the New York City skyline. It's in Maspeth, Queens, the Metropolitan Oval. But on the side of it, on one side are houses, like row houses. And on the other side is just like train tracks, So I would be there for games like PDL games, like Brooklyn Knights and and Vermont. I forgot the name of the Vermont team, but it was like early, old school PDL, and the guy for Vermont, it was like he was the owner, but also the center forward, also the general manager, right? He was the coach. He was like the Mr. Everything for them. And he was so upset about a missed call, I think, on a goal. He took the ball from the opening kickoff and just punted it onto the train tracks. So now you're like, all right, let's get another ball. So he gets another ball, puts it back, punts that one to the train tracks. So yeah, he got sent off. And I don't know if the balls were ever retrieved because they went to the train tracks.
Awesome.
And then on the other side, when balls would go to the houses, there was one homeowner who would just collect the balls and then sell them back.
Oh, very nice.
to the club. It was the home of the Brooklyn Knights for, maybe still is, but Met Oval. It's such a fantastic location.
Very cool. And I'm looking at a picture now, so I get what you're coming from. Very, very cool looking place. What's going on in the world of Dylan Butler we need to know about?
Yeah, no, I got a lacrosse game tonight. East Islip and Smithtown West. So a lot of directional lacrosse going on there with West and East. And it's probably about a 7 or 8 minute drive for me, which is nice.
Yes.
Next town over. And then I've got a really cool one on Saturday afternoon. I'm going to miss that early kickoff in MLS, but I've got what they call the Woodstick Classic. It's Garden City and Manhasset. It's the 139th edition of this game. They don't actually play with the Woodsticks. They did, obviously, at one point. But, yeah, and then it's more MLS on Saturday and Sunday. And looking forward to tonight as well with I'll get to it late after my game, but looking forward to some Philly LAFC. More magic from those two.
There you go. Dylan Butler at Dylan_Butler on the Twitters. Dylan, we'll catch up with you next week, my friend. Thanks for hanging out.
All right, gentlemen.